There is an entity with no face, yet it shapes the face of everything. A silent God that cannot be touched, yet touches everything that exists, from stones to thoughts, from bodies to beliefs. It moves without sound, yet leaves its mark. It has no form, yet everything that takes form owes its existence to it. It is called time. What a humble name for such a majestic force, so tyrannical, and yet so freeing. An invisible monarch that rules over kingdoms and emotions, deciding both the decay of fruit and the blossoming of hope. What irony! It's invisible, and yet we feel it with a clarity that sometimes aches. Time is sweet. Oh yes, when it offers us the taste of ripening, of healing, of wisdom. When it turns yesterday's pain into today's poetry. When it reveals that what once seemed like the end was merely a pause, a comma, not a period. But time is also bitter, when it carries away what we love, when it dissolves into the fog of the past, what we once vowed would last forever, when it ages faces, cools bodies, separates lovers, and silences the laughter of children. Time, so often blamed, and just as often misunderstood. Waiting in time can feel like despair, like throwing your soul into a deep well, hoping it rises again with an answer. But resting in it, oh, resting in it is like lying in the lap of eternity. It is trusting that even though we cannot control it, it leads us if we surrender with faith. Time is both a circle and a line. It moves in a straight path through the eyes of the clock, but spirals through the heart. Look at nature. Everything obeys a cycle. The seed becomes a tree, the tree bears fruit. The fruit returns to the soil. The baby becomes a man. The man loves. The man suffers. The man dies. And love lives on. Pain becomes longing. Longing becomes memory. And memory shapes who we are. It is time that cradles this cycle. It never stops. It doesn't negotiate. It simply is. And that's exactly why it scares us so deeply, because it is indifferent to our urgencies and our pleas. But there is something divine in that. If time is unstoppable, it is also incorruptible. It cannot be bribed. It does not bend to human will. It plays no favorites. And that is precisely why it can heal, because it is not at the mercy of anyone. When the heart is in pieces, they say, time heals all things. And sometimes that feels like mockery. How can time, the very thing that took joy away from us, be the same force that will bring peace back? And yet, so often, it does heal, not in a rush, not with answers, but with constancy. Like the wind smoothing the rough edges of a stone, it softens the pain in our chest. It helps us get used to what once seemed unbearable. It does not erase the pain, it transfigures it. It transforms it into art, into faith, into strength. Ah, how much deeper we become because of it. Time is the one who stitches our wounds with invisible threads. It does not promise we will never suffer again, but it prepares us to suffer with more serenity, with less despair, with more dignity. How can something be so cruel and so generous at once? How can time be blamed for our traumas and yet be the remedy that soothes them? Perhaps because time is a mirror of God, a reflection of His sovereignty and His grace. Just like God, time is sovereign. No one controls it. And just like God, time is merciful. It gives us chances, seasons, new beginnings. It whispers, what hurts today will teach you tomorrow. Time is never in a hurry, but it is never late either. Everything that arrives at the right time, even when it feels wrong. And everything that leaves, leaves when it must, even when our hearts beg for it to stay. To wait in time is to stand on a battlefield where the fiercest fight is against our own impatience. We want answers to come, doors to open, pain to stop. But time does not move to the sound of our demands. It dances to the rhythm of purpose, not whim. And this is where many give up, where many chase shortcuts, illusions, escapes. Because waiting hurts. Waiting confronts us with powerlessness, with the absence of control, with mystery. But for those who believe, waiting is a seed. It is faith in the unseen, a prophetic gesture of the soul that says, even without seeing, I trust. It is knowing that time is a teacher. It teaches through delay, through absence, through silence. And above all, it teaches us that His time is better than ours. Time does not reign, it serves. It serves a greater purpose, a higher mind, a deeper heart. It does not choose for itself, it carries out. And though its execution often seems cruel to us, it is part of a plan infinitely wiser than any logic we could comprehend. God, yes, He is eternal. He does not exist within time. It is time that exists within Him. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. All we call past, present, or future lies before Him as a single visible panorama. To us, life is a sequence. To Him, it is a whole. And that may be one of the greatest mysteries. Why did the Eternal place us inside time? Perhaps because some lessons can only be learned within limitations. You only learn the value of a moment when you know it will pass. You only discover the beauty of now when you carry the ache of yesterday and the hope of tomorrow. So time is not a prison. It's a school, a place of maturation, a field where faith is tested, character is formed, and the soul is trained for eternity. Memory is a way of eternalizing time in small capsules. It is a gift God gave us so we can carry pieces of what has passed, and how sweet those pieces can be, or painful, depending on what was recorded there. Some memories warm us like the sun in childhood, others hurt like thorns still buried in the chest, and yet all of them shape us. They give us identity. They help us understand who we were, so we can know who we might become. But it's important to remember, memory is not a place to live, only to visit. Time calls us forward. It is not a road that leads us back. God made us travelers, not prisoners of longing. Visit the past, learn from it, honor it, but don't live there. If the past wounds or comforts us, the future challenges us. It's where we project our greatest hopes and also our deepest fears. The future is where all of our what-ifs come to life. And that is one of the great ironies. The future, which hasn't even happened, can dominate us more than the present, which is right in front of us. We worry about what isn't yet, about what might never be, and we forget to live what already is. That's why Jesus taught us, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Matthew 6:34. He knew the future is a territory that belongs to divine providence, not human control. And still, God allows us to dream. He allows us to make plans, but He calls us to do it with humility, with dependence, with hearts open to be surprised, because the future is where God loves to show that He is God. How many times have we heard that time heals all wounds? And in many cases, yes, it does. Not because time has power in itself, but because God works within time. He moves inside it, even though He is beyond it. Emotional healing is often slow. And why would it be different? A wound of the soul runs deeper than medicine can reach. It needs time. It needs silence. It needs tears. It needs nights when the heart feels like it cannot take another breath. And yet, the sun rises the next day. God uses time to teach us patience, trust, surrender. He doesn't rush us. He doesn't push us. But He walks with us, even when the road is dark. The Bible is full of stories where time was the instrument of transformation. Joseph spent years as a slave and prisoner before seeing his purpose fulfilled. David was anointed king, yet waited years before ascending the throne. Even Christ Himself waited 30 years before beginning His ministry. To God, time is not an obstacle. It is a tool. But let's be honest, there are moments when time feels heavy. It seems to crush us with its slowness. When each minute feels like an eternity, and each hour a form of torture. It's the waiting time, for healing, for an answer, for change. And in those moments, time seems to mock our urgency, and God seems silent. But even in silence, He speaks. Even in the apparent delay, He is working. Because God's time is not chronological. It is kairos, the right time, the appointed moment. And sometimes, what He is doing in us is more important than what He will do for us. There is a place where time and eternity meet. And that place is not yesterday nor tomorrow. It is now. The present, so ignored, so underestimated, is the only moment where life truly happens. It is in the now that we breathe. It is in the now that we love. It is in the now that we cry. And it is also in the now that God reveals Himself. While our minds drift to the past and our hearts grow anxious about the future, our souls cry out for the present. Now is the sacred ground where the eternal steps. It is the only point on the timeline where we can encounter the God who exists outside of time. Time is a river, yes. It flows. It never stops. But there is a spiritual secret. What we do with the present moment can touch eternity. There are those who live as if life only begins later. After graduation, after marriage, after healing, after the promotion, after the next phase. They project fulfillment into a future that never quite arrives. But eternity doesn't begin out there. It has already begun. Since the moment God breathed life into us, we have been part of a story that does not end with death. That's why every second matters. Every act carries weight. Every choice echoes in eternity. Living in the present is a spiritual discipline. It takes effort to slow down, to look around, to be fully present in a conversation, in a prayer, in an embrace. But when we do, something miraculous happens. Life becomes full, rich, sacred. It is in the present that we can forgive, that we can say, I love you, that we can hear God's voice, that we can serve, give thanks, and breathe. The past is no longer in our hands. The future has not yet come. But the now is ours. It's all we truly have. There are moments in our story when time seems to break. Events that split us in two, the before and the after, the loss of someone, an accident, a revelation, a diagnosis, a betrayal, a birth. These moments teach us that time is not only movement, it is rupture. It separates us from who we were and pushes us toward who we are becoming. And sometimes that hurts. It hurts deeply, like skin being torn away, like a house being demolished. But those ruptures are also a calling, an invitation to live more consciously, an opportunity to wake up, to begin again. God uses these interruptions to awaken us, to teach us that time is not infinite and that eternity is closer than we think. To speak of time is, inevitably, to speak of death. Because time, even as it heals and teaches, also consumes. It draws us closer to the end, and that is the most uncomfortable truth, and also the most transformative one. Time reminds us that we are finite, that the clock does not stop, that the body ages, that opportunities pass. But far from being a burden, this can be a blessing. Knowing that we have limited time teaches us to value every moment, to love with urgency, to forgive with generosity, to live with intensity. And for those who believe, death is not the end. It is the threshold of eternity. The time that has carried us this far will leave us at eternity's door and bid farewell. And there, the clock stops. Because where God dwells fully, time is no longer needed. God does not waste time. Everything He allows has a purpose. Even delays, waits, and losses. There are days when time seems to stand still, as if life is on pause. But the invisible keeps happening. In silence, in routine, in weariness, God is at work. Often, the time we think is a pause is actually a time of preparation. Joseph, before becoming governor, hit rock bottom. Moses, before freeing Israel, spent 40 years in the desert. Jesus, before performing miracles, spent 30 years in anonymity. The waiting time is the time of the root, invisible to the eye, but essential to sustain what is to come. God does not rush, but He is never late. Ecclesiastes says, God has made everything beautiful in His time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Ecclesiastes 3:11. This means that even though we live within time, we were created for eternity. That's why we are never fully satisfied. We always want more. More life, more love, more meaning. Because we were made for something that transcends time. And it is also why time hurts us. Because it reminds us that this is not our final home. That we are just passing through. That everything passes, except God. And if everything passes, what remains? What remains is the love we gave, the faith we kept, the truth we lived. The fruits of the Spirit remain. What was planted with tears remains, because there is a promise it will be harvested with joy. Living in time is a constant paradox. We must plan, but not control. We must remember, but not cling to the past. We must dream, but not live in what has not yet come. And above all, we must live the now, with the wisdom of one who knows it will never return. Time is like fine sand slipping through the fingers. The more we try to hold it, the more it slips away. But when we receive it with reverence and lightness, it becomes an ally. To accept time, with its delays and departures, is a daily exercise in humility, a way of saying, I am not the center of the story. I am part of something greater, and even if I don't understand, I trust. Yes, time hurts. It takes away the people we love. It shows us day by day that all that is earthly has an expiration date. But there is also beauty in this pain, because it wakes us up. It pulls us out of autopilot. It invites us to love more deeply, knowing time with others is limited. It calls us to forgive quickly before it's too late. To say, I love you today, not later. It hurts, but it teaches. It hurts, but it builds. And sometimes, time gives us something we no longer expected. It restores joy where there was only ash. It brings new people, new dreams, new strength. That's why you must not give up in the time of pain. what seems like an end can be a new beginning. One of the greatest healings we can experience is this: making peace with time, learning not to force life's clock, but to trust God's timing. It's not easy. The flesh wants haste. The ego wants control. The soul, however, needs surrender. There is a right time for everything, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to speak and a time to be silent, a time to embrace and a time to let go. Ecclesiastes chapter 3. When we learn to discern the times, we become lighter, wiser, more present, and freer. Lightness is not the absence of pain. It is knowing that even pain has a purpose. It is living with the awareness that time is passing, yes, but that it doesn't have to be frightening. It can be sacred. Living with lightness is laughing without guilt, crying without shame, pausing to listen to music, looking into someone's eyes, savoring coffee slowly, knowing that the now matters. Lightness is trusting that time is in the hands of the one who loves us more than we understand, that he does not waste our days, that he collects every tear, and that nothing is in vain. Time is both sweet and bitter. It consoles us and provokes us. It heals and demands patience. Sometimes we feel it as an enemy, other times as a balm. It frustrates us when it seems to ignore us, but calms us when we finally see what it was building in silence. Time is contradictory because life is contradictory, but it is neither villain nor hero. It is the stage, the tool, the path. The great truth is, time is a gift, a present that doesn't come back, a treasure spent with every breath. And the final question is, what have you done with it? Have you been living or just waiting for the perfect moment to start living? Have you been enjoying it or only blaming yourself for what's been lost? Have you trusted that even in what seems like delay, God is preparing you? Today, this very today, this exact moment you are reading these words, is a chance to begin again, to release the weight of what has passed, to let go of anxiety about what is to come, to breathe deeply and say, Lord, I am here. Use my time as you will. Because in the end, what gives meaning to time is not what we do with it, but with whom we live it. And to live time with God is to transform it into eternity. Eternal God, Lord of days and hours, teach us to number our days so we may gain a wise heart. Help us to love time even when it challenges us, to wait with patience, to remember with gratitude, to live the now with intensity and faith. May we not get lost in pasts that cannot be changed, nor in futures that do not yet exist. May we rest in you as time flows. May we believe there is purpose even in silence, and that every time is a time of grace when lived with you. Amen. Time, with all its contradictions, is not the villain of our story, nor the hero. It is rather the living stage upon which our existence unfolds. It is the soil where we sow, the wind that pushes us, the river that crosses us. It confronts us with our finitude, but also gives us new beginnings. And if there is pain in its passage, there is also healing in its constancy. The great turning point happens when we stop resisting time as an enemy to be defeated and begin to welcome it as a silent teacher. When, instead of trying to control it, we commit to learning from it. It is at this point that time ceases to be a prison and becomes a path. It does not answer all our whys, but leads us to places where those whys lose their importance. The time that heals is also the time that exposes. The time that comforts is also the time that tests our faith. And paradoxically, the more we learn to wait with patience, the more we discover that time is merely an instrument in service of the eternal, not the end in itself. Thus, reconciliation with time is an act of faith, not only in God, but also in the holiness of the now. It is accepting that not everything will be as we dreamed, but everything can be redeemed. It is looking back with mercy, forward with hope, and at the present with wholeness. It is understanding that life is not a race against time, but a dance with it. Sometimes light, sometimes tense, but always full of hidden meanings. Each season has its music, and there is beauty both in the silence of winter and in the laughter of spring. So if today you feel time as something bitter, cruel, or unfair, know this: there is sweetness even in delay. There is learning embedded even in pain. And there is redemption possible even in hours that seem are lost. Make peace with time. Forgive what has passed. Embrace what is and trust what will come. Because time is not an obstacle. It is the stage God has chosen to write your story of love, growth, and eternity. Until the next video, subscribe to the channel and leave your like.